Yes.
Really?
I used to live in Maryland.
Well, that's where my family is.
Oh, okay, good. What part?
Bowie.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, my daughter used to live in Bowie.
Really?
Very nice.
Yeah.
Really.
It is
Yes.
7:06 and you are now live.
Welcome. This is the April 22nd, 2021 meeting of the City of Oneonta's Community Relations and Human Rights Commission. I will call it to order. I am Shannon McHugh, Chair of said commission. Unfortunately, like the Wizard of Oz, you will not be able to see me, so I can maintain my connection with no video. I will be emceeing for the evening. Bonnie, thank you for being our person in the wings tonight from the city. I will first have roll call this evening. Paul Conway and Luke Murphy are not with us tonight, but we do have a quorum. So, Commissioner Joyce Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Reverend Marty.
I am here.
Commissioner Carroll.
Here.
Commissioner Franklin Denzel Chambers.
Here.
We do have a quorum, so we're good with everyone who's not present. Thank you all for being here this evening. The first things first, petitioners or guests. We do not have any. Correspondences. Did anyone have any correspondences? No, okay. So we are good on correspondences as well. There are, we don't as a commission have any new announcements. Does anyone have new announcements they'd like to share with the commission?
Well,
No. Oh,
first night is decided last Tuesday to definitely go ahead with the hometown fourth as long as is in some way, shape, or form. And Alex Torres is going to be able to be there on 4th of July. So we're
Nice.
hoping, even if we have to limit it to 200 people and have 2 concerts, we'll be able to do something on 4th, hometown 4th. So if there's anything anybody could think of that they want to contribute or has any great ideas of, because it's a 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we're hoping we can spread it out both time-wise and geographically enough so that we can have a really fun festival without, breaking any of the rules in terms of COVID. So that's
awesome. Thank you for sharing. If anybody has any ideas, please shoot Carol emails. So no other announcements? Nope. Alrighty. We will move then very quickly to the approval of March 25th meetings. Thank you, Joyce, for getting them out to everyone and getting them together. Did everyone get a chance to look at them?
Yep.
Would anyone like to motion the minutes?
A motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second from Hollywood. All right. So we have a first from Carol and a second from Franklin. So we will go ahead. Thank you for that. We will move to old business.
All in favor?
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Joyce.
Aye.
I appreciate you. All in favor of passing the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Anyone abstain? Nope, the minutes are passed. Thank you, Joyce.
Oh, you're welcome.
This is why we work well as a team.
Right.
Old business. We have a couple of things. we were going to discuss Juneteenth. However, Deandra is not here. I did find out that we have a $500 budget this year. So we will kind of come back to that when we talk about Trailblazer. Because I know we were talking about possibly giving some money to the Juneteenth event to offset some of the costs. Deandra also worked on the welcoming statement, the welcome and inclusivity statement. It's still in the works, but it is coming along, so that is being worked on. So with the Trailblazer Awards, we did pick our winners. Joyce, I don't know if you want to mention or talk about what the mayor brought up, but he brought it up to me as well.
Oh, good. Well, if you talk directly to him, go ahead.
Okay, so the mayor was mentioning that we might be able to do something fun with the recipients of the awards this year and possibly give them the awards at one of the baseball games before one of the games. So I was, wanted to run it by everyone and see how you felt versus having like a more intimate situation where we're just handing off awards. Joyce was really excited.
I think that's
I'm
a
really
great idea.
excited. Because people are getting vaccinated and, we'll be far enough away from the stands and they will be holding games, I believe. It'd be nice for us to really, have some fun and hype up our recognition of our recipients for the past 2 years. So that is, so I want to tie that in then to our budget for the Juneteenth event, because I believe if that's the case, if we go that route, then really we are just buying the plaques and to pay for the engraving. And I think the flowers have been donated in the past.
Yes.
So really that would be our costs, and we would have more money, freed up to assist with the Juneteenth event.
I think Bonnie was going to check at City Hall and see if last year's names were already on the plaque. Am I right?
I wasn't aware of that. Do you know where the plaque is? And I can check.
Okay, it's in the hall going from the front door to the back door. It's near the finance office.
I will check and get back to you.
Thank you.
We're unsupervised, quick.
Uh-oh.
Okay. But yes, so once we figure that out, we'll have more of a budget to work with to assist with the Juneteenth event. So given we'll just have May to provide assistance and approve assistance at our May meeting then. But the game should be fun, especially given that last year's recipients have been waiting. So it would be a nice way to honor everyone.
Yeah.
Wanting to ask questions about the Juneteenth celebration because I wasn't here last time. Is that going to be downtown or in the
I
park?
believe it's in Neola Park.
Oh, in
I-
Neola Park? Oh, cool.
Don't quote me though, that, that's where it was last year. I haven't been involved in the intimate planning of it. Deandra's really handling that aspect. That's part of the group that she works with runs that event. So we were just kind of offering supportive measures.
Oh, okay.
I believe Paul did go to a meeting or two for the Juneteenth event, but he's not here. So unfortunately, he might have been able to give us more directive with that. But last year was a great event. This year, I know that they're bringing in a lot of artists, comedians, singers, dancers, people of color to come in and perform. And they've been reaching out to many wonderful people who've agreed already to participate. So I do know, it's definitely in the works.
Shannon, this is Marty. Can I just ask, are you going to speak with, oh, you can see us. We just can't see you. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Are you going to be speaking with Deandra?
I can, yes.
Can you just tell her, because it was in the minutes, we talked about it last time, Joyce had brought up last time that First United Methodist has a fund that can possibly be used for some expenses for the Juneteenth event, but the next meeting should be on the first Wednesday of May. I believe that's the 5th of May. So if she wants to apply for that, she should look on our website. The church website has the application on it. And if she has any questions, she could always call or text me or email me.
Awesome.
Wow, it's really coming down out there now.
Poor Bonnie, we sent her on a mission.
Yeah.
She went on an adventure.
Oh, and if we're just having a lull while we're waiting for her to come back, I will not be at our next meeting. I will be in California
Wow.
with my grandbabies.
Ooh, where are you going? Where is it?
They live in the Haight in San Francisco.
Oh my goodness. Are there still hippies there, or is it all
Oh,
yuppie?
yeah. Lots of hippies, sure. It's quite gentrified now, though. My
Yeah.
son's in-laws bought that house in the 1970s for a song.
Yeah,
Worth many millions of dollars now.
right. You know, my daughter lives in Rancho Murrieta, outside of Sacramento.
I have a lot of family in California, north and south.
Okay, Bonnie can come back when she's back, and we can kind of move on a little bit. If the cab committee. So so the Citizens Advisory Board to OPD, it got interesting. I'm gonna refrain from saying a whole lot. Actually, I probably should have thought about what I was going to say ahead of time, but the recommendations that were pushed through were good. They were good in the sense of it's new things we need here in the city. It's reform we absolutely need to see, but it isn't or wasn't up to what we were hoping for or expecting. And much of it was, for lack of a better term, kind of like watered down. And Subcommittee 4 really felt that, asking for some areas of specificness in the reform, should have been acceptable. Unfortunately, it wasn't deemed that way. So even though it wasn't unanimous, it did go through and it went to Common Council. Common Council received it, was able to take a look at it, and through the public coming to the meeting, we were able to speak with them and advise them that many of us who worked on these cab committees from all the committees actually came and said, hey, we'd like some more time. We really feel like more should be done. And council, were great. They heard us. They said, all right, let's do that. So now council will be addressing the reform as well. And from what I understand, subcommittees will be brought back in to help assist with that reform that they'll be working on. They'll have until June 1st. So it's, even though we've submitted our reform to the governor, it's still an ongoing process here. So hopefully, that's what's going to happen. Council will bring us back, and, we've been working on it for months on end and are the ones who made the recommendation. So it would make sense to bring us back and see at the very least, what we've gathered and surmised from all this work. So that is the spiel for the CAB committee right now. We are waiting word from council. Bonnie, are you back?
And I have an update for you.
Yay!
The plaque out in the hallway goes to 2015 with Deborah Marcus. And I just talked to finance. They have the tags for 17, 18, and 19 for another plaque. So they had 3 recipients in 2017, 3 recipients in 18, and 2 in 2019, if that matches your record.
I don't have the record in front of me, but it sounds right, but they were already on a second plaque.
Then I'm not sure where that plaque is, because the one I can see goes to 2015. So the other one must be posted someplace else that I'm not able to locate quickly.
Okay, they used to be both right there together, but every year we'd bring them out when we had the recognition. But there's no, you didn't find any extra names on nameplates to go on a plaque for 2020.
No.
Okay,
Well, let's just assume we have to do 2020 and 2021.
yeah.
I mean, what's the hurt in that? So thank you so much, Bonnie. We appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
See why I thank you in the beginning. But so let's, we'll just budget for 20 and 2021. It's not that much of a, huge difference.
No, and they're done here locally. They're done at the Alpine.
Okay, yeah. So Joyce, you would have a better idea about what that's going to cost us to do for both. And then the frames and,
The frames are inexpensive. I buy them at Walmart.
Okay, so then, we'll figure, I mean, we always spend like under 100, right? Or
Oh, yeah,
even less, like under 75.
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm thinking if,
Oh, wait.
Go ahead.
It seems to me that there was talk of having to have a new wooden plaque. So I don't know if that's why she's only finding one. But there were the 2. I'm not sure if we filled up the second one. I know there was going to be a need for a new plaque, but Bonnie, would I check that with Carrie?
Actually, I was just checking with Ginny. She had all the information that I provided to you just a few moments ago.
Okay. But there were 2 plaques, and if she didn't have 2.
I will follow up and give a report to Shannon tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I mean, I was gonna say like pretty safe, like if we figure out $250 or $300 to give towards Juneteenth, because the reality of us being able to get out and get to Job Corps or do any of these other, programs that we're normally involved in are quite minimal for this year. I mean, I believe the way things, I think we have 46 cases over the last few days. I know that the health department is still, keeping really strong guidelines here in Otsego County. So I don't think we used any of our budget last year besides the brochures for Professor Montoya. And I think that was $250, and we.
I don't think any of that money was paid yet that we said we would pay the interns. Paul would have to check on that because I don't know where that project stands.
Yeah, I mean, that would come out of last year's budget, though.
No, when the year's up, the year's up. So it would have to come out of this year since it wasn't spent last year. I think that's something else that would need to be checked on for sure.
Joyce,
But-
you are correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Alrighty, so then that's something that we need to do then. I will email Paul and ask him where that stands, so we can have a better idea of what our budget's gonna look like. I mean, it may be that they weren't able to follow through with the brochure because of COVID. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, that's a possibility.
because I definitely want to offer, what we can to the Juneteenth event, being that we're really not going to have much going on outside of Trailblazer this year. So I will email Paul. Alrighty. So does anyone else have any old business they'd like to discuss before we get on to new business? No? Okay. So let's move forward on to new business. Does anybody have anything they'd like to talk about during new business this evening? No, I figured maybe, we would, talk about if people wanted to address the local protesting and the shooting that occurred. It's not anything we really have to delve too deeply into right now, but being the Human Rights Commission here, we might, want to just discuss it a little bit.
There was I can't remember his name, but there was a good program in NPR tonight. I don't know if people heard it, but it was a consultant who's working with a bunch of different communities, including Ithaca, New York, to help the police figure out how to de-escalate situations like that. A police reform consultant. He was really great. If you can get that NPR piece, it's well worth a listen, because there are so many people who have mental health issues these days. I don't know if it always was, but it seems to me like with the combination of access to firearms and mental health issues, that the police have to figure out a way to deal with people. I mean, this guy was telling like how he went into communities and studied where the police violence was coming from, and a lot of it was coming from routine traffic stops, and he was advising communities to stop carrying weapons for routine traffic stops, and ways that they could do traffic ticketing without having officer interaction with the or deterrent stuff, rather than having people stop people and get them out of their cars for speeding or tail lights. And
Yeah, I mean, with the cab committee, this is something we were trying to address, right?
Right.
Now, New York State has required that there is a minimum of 2 hours of de-escalation training per year, which began this April of this year. We were asking for more than that. We were told that we couldn't ask for specific numbers of training because too many like over specifics. I mean, I can't, I don't really want to get, too deeply into it, but it's something that we are going to try to ask for now that council has the reform in their hands. In Oneonta, if you have a mental health issue per the 2019 OPD reports, if you came upon OPD and you had a mental health concern, you were 72% likely to be arrested. 72% chance you're going to be arrested. That's an
Right.
alarming number.
Well, because that's the only option for people. Actually, the person who witnessed that shooting, I know he's sort of a friend of Kevin Mersowitz. So he actually called right up and while it was happening and it told us that, what he saw. And he obviously got things a little wrong. I know people watched the videos and, without really seeing all the evidence, you have to assume that he was, that it'll be investigated and everything will, turn out to be.
Yeah.
But
I think definitely everybody who's viewed it views it differently, right?
Right.
It depends like what kind of heart you have and mindset you have and how you view what happened there. Being that I serve on various boards and commissions and committees and stuff like that, I've seen multiple videos from multiple angles, at multiple different points. There's some things there that, I think need to be addressed, specifically the lack of medical attention. If the data from the police department that the Daily Star released is to be believed, he was shot at 1:14. At 1:16, he radioed in shots fired. The interim chief heads over there, and it's not until 1:19 that he calls for an ambulance. We should be calling for an ambulance the second that bullet hits him, especially in two shots that could kill him. I
Right.
get that he's done something wrong, but now you put a bullet in him and he needs medical attention.
Right.
So, that's something that, with training and reform, we should see, positive outcomes with, which is why we really do need to push this reform with the city council through. We are not judge, or juror of this man. He needs to be able to be brought into court and, have it go the appropriate routes. So unfortunately, there's that piece. There's a few other pieces, but I think that is the most profound when you realize they took 5 minutes after putting 2 bullets in him to call for medical attention, and that they called the interim chief first and, said shots fired first. In fact, I believe that the ambulance and the interim chief showed up, pretty much at the same time, when the ambulance should have been there first, because really we're talking about Fox Hospital. We're not talking about any place that's super far away. He could have been there in 5 minutes. That would, would have been, sooner medical attention. But, maybe waiting for things to unfold more before we really get into it. If people really don't want to discuss it, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm just concerned. I don't know if like a mental health worker coming with the police to a situation like that would be, if there's even time to round somebody up when they get a domestic violence call. It just seems like there's so many people right on the edge of,
Well, Utica actually brought somebody, from what I was told, they actually created a space to have someone in-house. So they have a mental health service provider in-house at the police station. There's a space for them. And I did push this idea along in Subcommittee 4's reform to have somebody that's available in-house, but have them available to both the officers and to the public, along with support from MCAT and other various groups, so that our, outreach with mental health can be better. Also, people who are coping with addictions. I really want to, or I'm sorry, let me back up. I don't want to kick off Subcommittee 4's whole reform, but definitely areas that can be served better by just reappropriating, services to the correct professionals. So we'll see what happens. Any other new business, or anybody have thoughts or ideas about what happened?
I think everybody's, going to be very interested in what kind of public information comes out after the AG's office investigates, which has to happen, right? Because there's shots fired or because somebody died. But Officer Pajurski was sort of loosely connected with our congregation. He wasn't a member. I think he's a member of St. Mary's, but I'm not sure. But his kids, or his son John, I guess, was connected with our congregation. I never met anyone from the family because I've only been here still a short time. But I did write a letter to him just to say that I would be available. I'm not a licensed counselor, but if he just needed somebody to talk to for spiritual support, these things happen so fast, and several lives are ruined, including his. And I just said I would offer to listen in a very non-judgmental way and pray for him. But so I took it over to the police station. It was handwritten on church letterhead, and just I left the envelope open. So when I went to the door at the police station, I said, "Feel free to read it if you want, in case you're worried that it's not a letter of support." But I'm assuming they handed it on to him, but I didn't hear anything from him. I didn't really expect to, but I just wanted to make the offer because his family has been somewhat connected to the church from a couple of different activities that his son was involved in when he was younger.
Unfortunately, OPD doesn't have access to a lot of mental health resources, and
Right.
that's something we were trying to address in the reform as well. Currently, they only have access to a telephone that anonymously calls into a counselor if they, choose to do that. They can't be directed or asked or told.
Right.
So if something traumatic happens, like the event that occurred, an officer cannot be asked to take time or speak to a counselor. Now, much of this has to do with, unions and contracts and all sorts of different walls. So I'm not suggesting that this is a UP, or an OPD barrier necessarily. I do know that the interim chief does bring in somebody, I believe he is a pastor, to assist at times when he feels like
Right.
maybe there's something going on. But having somebody that is a professional in-house, or even somebody who is out of house, who they can go see, when they'd like to, and have a really nice continuum of care versus the anonymity that the phone provides.
Right.
Also having expectations that if we make it across the board, that if something traumatic happens, every officer will be asked, not just singling out. So
Right.
you take away that stigma.
Yep.
So, there's just certain ways we can address that. But right now, unfortunately, our officers do not have adequate mental health assistance.
Yeah.
So that's
They
something.
have like an employee assistance program or something like that.
I'm sorry, say again?
A lot of places have an employee assistance program. They don't have that either.
There's a lot of stigma attached to officers receiving mental health services.
That's just sad.
So,
Well, that's
you know,
society in general.
I know it's loosening up a little as time goes on, but it's still there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as stigmatized as it used to be years ago, but it's still there. Especially, I'm sorry to say, for men, but in this particular case.
yes, I mean, so it's definitely something that in the reform that we were trying to kick through in the initial phase that was going to the governor was, you know, trying to address the lack of services that OPD has for mental health, because them having better mental health services benefits us all. It benefits them, it benefits the community. You know, addressing it is just it's just so many benefits and pluses.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and we also now finally got some new hires. So we were 9 officers down and
Oh,
down a chief. We do have Chris as interim chief, and we're 7 officers up now. So
wow.
that does take the strain off of, you know, they were working incredible shifts, incredible hours. They're being asked to do so much.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully, you know, we'll see. We June, like I said, June 1st, the council will have addressed, you know, the reform again, and we'll see what happens from that.
Right.
But definitely
also have-
something.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I said we also have a terrible therapist shortage in this town.
We do.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
One of our church members, Kathy Pollock, when she retired about 2 years ago, she didn't have anywhere to send all her people, you know, who she wanted to bequeath to somebody else. There just aren't. There just not enough folks here. But that's true for the medical community in general, anyway. A revolving door. Everybody likes their doctor, and the doctor will leave, you know, in a year. It's just the way it is. Rural medicine, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. But
that is you know, I'm really applauding you, Shannon, and the subcommittee to, you know, at least make it available and say every officer will be asked, because when you go through a traumatic experience like that, you have to be able to tell the story to somebody who's, you know, trained, licensed, and otherwise it's going to come back and bite you. Confidential, obviously. So I hope the council will take your suggestions seriously and really try to work with the union to make it happen.
there's a lot of legalities here,
Right.
fortunately, that have to be worked through.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take some time to figure what that space, you know, figure out what that space is.
Yeah.
But there are communities who are addressing it that we can mirror, that are similar in size to us, like Utica.
Sure.
So we can, I don't mean Utica is the same size. I just mean that they've addressed it. Let me back up. They've addressed it in a way that's benefiting the community.
On the NPR NewsHour last night for what they're doing with their police department.
I would really love for us to be the ones that are stepping on the gas, and we can be the model for other spaces. I would love for that to be us.
Totally believe you.
So we're working towards it. I believe that there are people on the council who'd really like to see that happen. So we're moving in that direction. So if no one has anything.
No, I have to ask the question. Is anybody else concerned about the incident of the teacher who drove by the demonstration and his behavior?
Yeah, that was terrible.
What was it, Joyce? I didn't hear about it.
I was very concerned about that.
Well, a teacher, Shannon, you were there. Maybe you can, I'm only knowing what I read in the paper, but you were there.
Yeah, so during the protest, someone drove by. I was Facebook living it, so people can get an idea of what was happening downtown. And as I was Facebook living it, I hear like shock and confusion, and some younger people were like, "Oh, that's my teacher. My teacher just flipped me off. My teacher's flipping me off." And then the other young lady was like, "He's cursing at us and his kids are in the car." And there was a young man there as well, I guess, who's his current student, and was like, I can't believe this is happening. So I didn't catch him doing it. I just caught the reaction on Facebook Live. I don't think I have it up. I didn't share it necessarily. I kind of wanted opinions to be reached through, more solid methods than me not actually capturing it. You know what I mean? But just the reaction. But yeah, he didn't know, who he was expressing himself to.
Right.
So he felt strongly about it, strongly enough to flip people off and curse. And it just happened to be that it was his student.
Yeah.
He happens to be my neighbor,
Oh,
and he's a very popular teacher. And so I'm sure that there are a lot of mixed emotions at the school over this. So I was just really upset when I read about it in the paper myself, just because I know him. And the superintendent
Can I call you back?
was brought into the conversation of what happened. So I don't know where everything is going. But I was a little concerned about trial by newspaper once again. The same has happened with the shooting. The newspapers like to sensationalize, and I have trouble with trial by newspaper.
It's tough because there's this idea of freedom of speech, right? And he chose to go by and say those things and do those things, but that line gets tampered with when it's at students, right?
Oh yeah, I'm not condoning what he did at all. And
Unfortunately, a lot of people who went by that day weren't actually paying attention to what was being said or why people were out there. They were just yelling things. They were just angry and yelling things. Or if they, had just taken a moment to look at any one of the signs that people who were participating were holding, you would know that it had nothing to do with what you're screaming about. So I think people just overall are frustrated and annoyed and angry and on edge. And when you see a demonstration like that, it invokes something in you, and it did in him that day. And, had it not been at students, would it be the same? Would it rise to the same level that he flipped out and cursed out, peaceful protesters? I'm not sure, but we can't unscramble eggs, right? It was at students. So I'm sure it's going to be a tough call for whoever is involved.
Hmm.
But all right, so if no one has any other news to bring up or comments or questions, I think we are good for this evening.
All right, everybody enjoy the snow.
I move we adjourn.
All right, we will adjourn this evening. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Need a second.
I seconded it.
Okay.
Good seeing
Marty,
you.
have fun in California. Frank, enjoy the weather.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.